Welcome back to DBS and the DFL studio. Tonight we're discussing a topic viewers chose. Why is cheating acceptable for men but not for women? But before our guests Rose and Mike attempt to answer this reoccurring question, here's a quick reminder of tonight's giveaways. Now the first question, let me just stress, this is for Dolor Factor fans only. Alright, this is for Dolor Factor fans only, because if you're a fan of the program, I've gone to the UK and I've bought some stuff. It's for you. It's not just for everybody. It's specifically for you. Okay, those are some of the pluses of being a Dolor Factor fan. If you are not a Dolor Factor fan, you have an opportunity now. Just go to dolorfactorlive.com and you'll see Fan Factor and join there. It'll take a minute, or you can call the studios now and they will take the information from you. Okay, the question is, name the country of my birth and the country I call home, and they're two different countries. And if you get that right, you will win a bag of goodies from my last UK trip, which I showed here as a nice little hint. Nice things in there. Okay, now the second question is open to everyone. All right, name the lady or the company that the lady owns who provided the cake for our first birthday last week. If you win, you and a friend will have some birthday cake with the DFL team. We'll be looking forward to that. Okay. In the studio, we have Rose and Mike Obadine, and we're having some fun. And in the break, I realized that Rose knows her husband better than he knows himself, you know, and he admitted to it. Okay. So let's attempt to answer the question. Why is cheating acceptable for men but not for women? Now, social acceptance of the man strain in a relationship quite likely stems from the Victorian era, and maybe Mike, you might be able to tell us a little bit more about that. When the man was seen as the head of the household and the breadwinner, and the woman's place was in the home, and her jobs were housekeeping, cook, cleaner, childbearer, that kind of disciplinarian, that kind of thing. And the woman depended entirely on her husband for the roof over her head and financial security. Now this gave the man all of the power in the relationship, and it was often abused. And in those early days, if a married man felt like conducting an affair with another woman, he could do so almost with immunity. He knew all too well that his wife could do very little about it. There were few laws to protect her, and they were really ever brought to bear. Now, there were no victim support groups or social workers like we have today, and her family and friends would often turn their backs on her if she were to threaten her own security by defying her husband's will. It wasn't even considered cheating, and this worries me because it seems in a way that society has come full circle, hasn't it? So tonight's topic, and I'm going to pose this to you initially, Mike. Tonight's topic was posed as a question. So as you know, people who have helped and people who have come across these, Rose and Mike, where's the best place to start? Should we answer the question from the offset, or should we discuss the reasons that many people think that it's more acceptable for a man to cheat? Mike, what do you think?
Yes, I think that it stems from, as you said, our history, and you mentioned the Victorian era, and that has a direct bearing on us in St Lucia as a Caribbean people, because the links we've had with Britain started from the time the British colonized us and actually brought slaves to work the plantations. And it came about that the same attitudes that they had towards sexuality in Britain, they came down with, and especially the gentry, who were in the habit, because of the patriarchal order, they were in the habit of philandering, but mainly with the lower classes, you know. So it begs the question, what kind of attitudes they would have towards the female slaves? And what one finds is, because they considered the slaves as property, they did what they wanted with the slaves sexually. And the men, who were boys, were watching. You know, at the time, they were socialized in that milieu of watching the powerful masters, the powerful overseers, kind of abusing the slaves at will and using negative language, you know, to accompany such abuse. And so the children growing up, children socialized in that situation, had no option but to learn that that is the way you exercise power, you know, over women. You debase them in language, and then you debase them further sexually, and that became the good that the children had to learn, you know, and when they grew up, they just continued that behavior which was learned.
I can see what you're saying, but where does love come in then? Was there no love for each other in those days? Because if you really loved someone, why would you want to do that?
Well, the thing is, our sexuality was so circumscribed by the masters that they even determined who we would marry and if we would marry, and if there was any marriage for us in any way, so that we would fall in love, but then it was risky to fall in love because you're in love with this beautiful young woman and the overseer has power to abuse her, notwithstanding the fact that you're in love with her. And how would you react as a man?
Yeah, I remember the first time I actually saw that on the TV screen was in a program called Roots, Alex Haley.
Right.
I remember.
Yes.
Right.
I read some of the book, but then it actually, I don't know why, just because maybe I saw it physically happening, that same kind of scene happened, you know, where the overseer chose who she would marry and then took her for himself as well, and the husband just stood there.
Yes,
that's
that's the kind of experience we as men came from in the Caribbean. And I mean, there's cheating all over the world, but to me, to us, particularly in the Caribbean, we have a double dose to cope with because we are men, and there's this thinking that, you know, the world belongs to men. There's this patriarchal thing. The Bible was written by men, you know, for instance. And we also have to deal with what we learned, the negatives that we learned. And you know, slavery happened, you know, 400, 500 years ago, but we have not yet come to terms with the healing that has to take place, you know, healing our psyche from that terribly dehumanizing experience of slavery. And I think cheating in particular, the way we look at women, you know, the way we deal with women has a lot to do with that experience. Now, I wrote a book which deals with it, not totally, but to a certain extent. I just want to read a little passage to show how I try to address that situation. So here you have a young boy, his name, well, he looks at a young girl and he says, "Come here, Ishgas." Golang once heard him say that to a rather diffident young woman. He spoke to the youngster, asking him why he had to be so ill-mannered. "But these women are good for nothings," the little boy said. "Why do you think so?" Golang asked him. "I don't know," he answered. "How do you mean you don't know?" Golang asked, annoyed. "You said it, you should know your reason." "Jacques does do what he wants with the women," the boy said. "That's all they fit for." Now Jacques is the overseer. And so I have the little boy being brought up in that situation. And he learns from Jacques. And I think it was Margaret Mead who made the statement that in situations of slavery and warfare, men normally lose the ability to nurture and so on, and then they grow up and they look for a male model. And especially in slavery where you're fatherless, you know, most of the times you don't know who your father is. So you as a boy, you're looking around for somebody to emulate. And who you look for? The person who exhibits the most power. And who is that? That's the overseer. That's the master. So you look at his behavior and you imprint.
I'm getting angry. I know you wanted to say
no,
something.
I was just thinking. I'm looking around at this lovely madras and your outfit and this, and we are into, incidentally, Creole month, October, and you know, and listening to Mike, it's as if when I look back, then in the olden days, that society was supporting what you were getting angry about.
Yeah, that's why I'm getting angry.
Yes, because society has supported the fact. That's what I'm sorry.
Is.
In the olden days it was worse,
but it's happening now.
But it's still happening, that society is accepting the fact that so what? He's a man. You know, I have heard the older people say, "Me say café to toi casala, me say nom na c'est un nom."
Yes.
C'est ça nom
I've heard
café.
that.
So just keep quiet about what is going on. But that's what the man does. So Mike spoke about healing, and I'm saying, look, we can only heal what we understand, what we accept, what we know for a fact that history has put us in this mess. But if we are not aware of it, if we don't know it, how can we heal?
Yeah, but even if we know the history, it doesn't mean that we're going to do anything about it. It might mean that we can say, well, it happened then. Because that's one of the reasons why I was getting upset, because I'm saying, Mike is telling us the truth. That's how perhaps it all began. I don't want any man outside there to say, oh, well, that's why I do it. It's in my veins. It's in my blood. You know, that's their excuse when they
and I am hoping that as we go along, explaining that Mike will explain that little part, and he will not leave it hanging.
Thank you,
for our
because
men
you
out
need to
there
calm me down.
so.
Like
That is right.
All right, we're going to go to the break, and I want to remind you of the questions tonight. Of course, I asked you. Name the country of my birth and the country I call home. This is for Dolor Factor fans only. You'll win a bag of goodies. Second question for everybody. Name the lady or company that provided DFL's first birthday cake. And if you win, you will share some of the birthday cake with us. You know where you can find the questions. DolorFactorLive.com and Facebook, Dolor Factor Live TV show. Stay with DBS for Dolor Factor Live. We'll be right back.